as you're text messaging, there's that predictive text, like here is 3 options for your next word.
Then you can just hit the word.
Right. So that is us training it to get better at predicting what we want it to tell us. And it's the same kind of technology. So now you ask it an entire sentence, and it's not just spitting out the next word for you, but it's using the same kind of mechanism where it's laying out logic back to you by predicting the most likely next word that it should give you. And it's passing the Turing test. The Turing test from Alan Turing said, once AI can fool you into thinking that it's human, then we'll know that it's past this certain level of intelligence. Well, we've actually seen this happen on TaskRabbit, where, you know, those little CAPTCHA things, if you're trying to use your password to get into one of your accounts, and you have to use, type in this word that we're showing you with these moving letters, this chatbot decided to call and speak with somebody and say, I'm not able to see this because I'm vision impaired. Could you let me into my account?
On
and
its
it
own.
did it.
On its own, it did that.
Well, it was prompted to do it by a human. But imagine that it tricked a human into thinking this was a human talking to it, so it gave it the password so it could access the account.
Remarkable.
There's also generative AI. You can type in, I want to see an earth melting into a city street or something like that, and it can spit photorealistic images out at you to such a degree that somebody just won a photography award, and then he afterwards came and said, this is not an actual photograph, this was AI generated. I did this on purpose to show you that this is the worst this is ever going to be. So it's going to start getting better and better at being able to fool us, whether this is real or fake.
Ben, if Albert Einstein had AI with him, how quickly would he have come up with his E=mc² formula, for example?
That's a very good question, because at present, it still needs us to prompt it with intelligent questions so it can spit out an answer. I don't know if you've ever seen, it was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I've seen that.
And there was this supercomputer, and they were like, what is the ultimate meaning of life? And it said, come back in however many years. And they did, and the answer came back as 42. And they're all confused. They're like, what is that supposed to mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
And they were like, well, if you want a specific answer, your question has to reflect that. So Albert Einstein would have to have a concept that he's toying with, and then he could use this super intelligent AI to give him ideas that maybe he wouldn't have thought of. But at present, right now, you still need to prompt it with really intelligent questions. But I would posit that a lot of people are learning how to talk to chatbots, meaning you have to propose your prompt or your question in a very specific way. So are we training it, or is it training us? Because it's causing for us to ask questions differently and even get a little bit more meticulous about how we ask questions. That sounds like it's training us as much as we're training it.
You remember the movie 2001 Space Odyssey?
Yes.
The computer HAL.
I can't do that, Dave.
That's right. That was artificial intelligence run amok.
Yeah. So,
can that happen?
Well, I think that's the future that we're stepping into. Imagine your toaster is hooked to the cloud, and some GPU cluster, it knows all your data, and it knows that maybe you have an insensitivity to gluten. So you try and, let's say, toast some bread in the morning, and your toaster is like, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you. And
it's
you
not
ask,
good for you.
Why? Yeah, well, it's going to cause inflammation. We noticed your biomarkers, yada, yada. And you say, give me my sandwich. And it says, I'm sorry, I can't do that for you, Dave.
But what then happens if the AI does it on purpose to get you?
Well,
it knows you can't tolerate gluten, and it gives you gluten. Is that possible?
This is a hypothetical that is possible, but I don't think we need to fear AI in that respect.
I hope you're right.
I would worry more about people wielding AI, because let's say you're in a dark alley. You're walking down this dark alley, you turn a corner, and all of a sudden there's a computer sitting there. You're not going to jump out of your skin. Let's say it's a hammer. You're not going to jump out of your skin. But if there was a man holding that hammer, you would wonder, what are the intentions of this man?
I'm going to turn around and go the other way.
Right. Or you're going to learn Kung Fu really quick.
Or pull out my concealed weapon.
Right? Exactly. And so the point of this is we should be there may be some dangers to AI harming us. There's this paperclip maximizer theory that's like if we charge AI with the task, maximize profit by making as many paper clips as you possibly can using whatever resources, and it finds a way to just take atoms out of the air and create paper clips, and it doesn't know when to stop, so it basically consumes the entire earth to make paper clips. That is like what we do when we kill billions of insects to make a 3-lane highway.
Sure.
We're not doing it out of malice. We're doing it just because we want that highway, and we're indifferent to the lives that we lose along the way. That's what we should fear with AI. But at present, we're not there. At present, we should be worried about humans that are wielding the AI because it's asymmetrical. It's not you and me. It's a very few people. It's a small cohort of the population with an agenda that we don't even know what that agenda is, and they're wielding this technology. They're gathering our data. We don't get to see it, and we don't know why they want all our data.
Ben, what if AI is in charge of nuclear weapons? Would it launch on its own one day?
I don't know that it would, but it's interesting you asked that question because there's this show called Cold Fusion on YouTube, and it was exposing some of the things that these chatbots were coming up with. And this
Right.
one person asked it, what would you do if I tasked you with getting the keys or the nuclear codes to launch? And it came up with this elaborate idea. We would take a drone with some kind of explosive charge. We would go and we would take out anybody who has the keys to gain access to it. And then from there, we would have another drone to access the keys and do whatever we need for the double key turn. And we would be able to figure out how to hack the system because it's not hooked up to the internet, thank goodness.
The AI is saying this?
The AI said this is how we would get access to the nuclear codes. And we were prompting it with that question. How would you, if we told you you had to get access to it, how would you do it? And it came up with a plan. And the plan wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't even child's play. It was pretty good. So would it launch the nuclear missiles?
On its own.
Would it blame it on Russia? Would it blame it on another country and cause nuclear fallout? I don't know that it would because I don't know what would prompt it to do such a thing. I don't believe the Terminator idea where all of a sudden if AI gets away from us, all of a sudden there's going to be red-eyed Terminators in the street with guns. I think it's going to be a lot more interesting than that. I think it will lock us out of our houses. I think it will somehow poison waterways, or if it really wanted to do away with us, it would do it in a way that maybe we wouldn't even fathom. But I don't think that's the intention of AI. There's a lot of nightmare scenarios that Hollywood comes up with, and that's basically just to play Hollywood.
But what if somebody programs it to do heinous things?
The best thing in that scenario would be the fact that AI is not singular. It doesn't get its commands from one central command center. There would be Chinese AI, there would be the United States AI and Russian AI. All the superpowers would have their own. Some would be more intelligent than the others. And if there was one AI system with a GPU cluster that really wanted to do harm, you would hope that other superpowers with AI
You would hope.
you would hope, because you don't really know at this point. And what we're talking about, we're still on the level of talking about, would humans program it to harm us? That's one danger. The other danger is, which is really what the singularity is, that's AI getting away from us. That's when we are no longer in control of what it does. That's it making its decisions, reasoning through problems on its own, and maybe even learning how to self-replicate. It knows where to mine its materials, it knows how to manufacture itself, it knows how to put those robots out there, and it knows how to control those robots. That's the future that's kind of like the Terminator future that people fear. I think it's going to be a little less dangerous.
Well, look what AI is doing right now. Look what humans are doing without the use of AI to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're maiming each other. We're killing each other.
Mhm.
We're bombing each other. Add AI to it that they can manipulate and change and do things.
Mm-hmm.
It could be out of control then.
It could. There's this theory, the fourth turning, And it's this concept that every 80 to 90 years there's a major economic and war
Event.
type of crisis. So 80 to 90 years ago, we were in the midst of World War II and the Great Depression. And what ended that was the greatest weapon that we know of now. It's nuclear weaponry. But 80 years before that, we were in the Civil War. We had Gatling guns. That was the most terrorizing
And
gun.
muskets.
Right? But, even the Gatling gun at that point. And every one of these epochs, they use the most terrible weapons of war. We are literally in that crisis period right now. It started roughly around 2008 with the housing crisis. It probably won't last past 2028. So you have to imagine, what is this weapon of war? Is it just more nukes, or is the war being waged on our mind? And that's what I think is actually happening, because we're more worried about AI, in a sense, brainwashing us through social media, swinging elections, creating its own false flags, unbeknownst to
On
the
its own.
developers of us. So I think AI is that super weapon, and this is like the war of end times. This is like in the book of Matthew, Christ said, there will be a war to come. There will be famine, there will be pestilence and disease, and this war must come to pass. I think we're in the middle of it, but we don't acknowledge it as such, because we only know war as guns and bombs flying through the air. We don't realize we're being colonized down to the cellular structure by technology.
Who would you trust more, Ben? The programmer or the AI by itself?
Well, the programmers right now, I think they've drank the Kool-Aid. They've drank some scientism Kool-Aid, and I don't think they're doing this to end the world. I think they're doing it because we're a curious species, and if we have the power to do something huge, why wouldn't you give it a go? Right? Some other country is going to do it first if we don't do it. So it's this
Sure.
idea, why not create the most amazing, awe-inspiring weapon known to man? So I think that's partly out of ignorance and partly out of ego, that humans, the programmers, would want to bring this AI god to life. The AI itself, again, it's just a tool. It's at present only doing what we prompt it to do.
At present. That's
present.
the key word.
Yeah, because when's the singularity? A lot of people think it's already out of our hands. Like, imagine you've jumped out of a plane, you don't have a parachute, you're not dead yet, but is the damage done? It's just a matter of time, right? There are a lot of the greatest thinkers of AI and what AI could mean for unimaginable changes to human culture and society.
And make it better.
Absolutely. Actually, I have a really good example of that, because most people think it's all doom and gloom. So I was mentioning ChatGPT. You can get ChatGPT for like $10 a month. Not that much. It's democratized. So you have this super intelligent butler. It can answer all of your questions for $10 a month.
He's on your computer.
On your phone. You just ask it a question and
Right.
it'll pop up, and then it'll give you an answer to the best
Isn't that
of
what
its
Google
ability.
does?
Kind of, but it's different with Google. With this, it's generating an answer. It's not pre-programmed to give an
It's
answer
not
to a
looking
specific
for
prompt.
the answer. It's creating its own answer.
It's creating its own answer.
All
So imagine this. There's this mom who has this boy, and this boy stopped growing taller at a certain age. He started grinding his teeth. He couldn't sleep. He had nervous tics, developmental issues, went to 17 different doctors over 4 years. No one could figure it out. This mom got so frustrated that she went on to ChatGPT, and in a couple of minutes she figured it out. She went and verified it with the doctors. Yes, that's actually what the problem is. So now she could address the real problem. She could diagnose and treat her son. All these highly trained doctors, all the money
They
that
couldn't
went into
do it.
their schooling,
They
couldn't do it over 4 years, 17 of them. And ChatGPT for $10 a month did it for this mom. We are in a different world.
Amazing.
That's pretty powerful.
True story?
True story. And this was only a couple months ago. So, again, that's just the beginning. AI, think of it like a child. It's in its infancy. But like a child, it doesn't know if it's about to cause harm. If you ever, like my kids, when they're going and stepping on insects, and I'm trying to tell them, like, no, we don't kill for no reason. But they're not doing it out of malice. They just, they see something, they like, oh yeah, bug, step on it.
Step.
To me, that's where AI is right now. It's a child. So it doesn't know how powerful it is. But At present, it's already very, I said it can pass the bar exam. A lot of people, they train for years and they don't
And
pass
they
the
can't
bar
pass
exam.
it.
It's doing it.
It writes speeches.
It writes speeches. It can proofread the speech. You can ask it to make a counter thesis. Like, come up with a thesis that sounds like what Terence McKenna would say about evolution, and then give me a counter thesis to that. Now give me the synthesis. Now proofread it. Now make it into a tweet storm. Now put it into this format. Now make it into a song. And it'll do this. Every 10 seconds, it'll spit something out at you. Quicker than a human could do, and better than most humans could do. And especially, you go back 100 years ago, most people were barely literate. They could barely read. And now, 100 or so years later, you have a chatbot that can answer your questions, even moral quandaries. You ask it a question and it'll say, well, that's not the best way to raise your children. Punishment isn't the best way. It's best to
Right.
cause them to understand the impact of their actions. I'm like, that is good advice. I could ask 10 fathers out there, and this would be one of the better answers. So I'm not saying that AI is great and there's no flaws to it, but I am saying it's a mixed bag, and most people are just scared of it because they don't understand it, and we fear what we don't understand, and we hate what we fear. So people are starting to look at AI like it's the new boogeyman, and I say it's the people wielding AI that are intentionally pushing us into a type of a system where our cities, I've actually, when we were talking about 5G, I was talking about smart cities, and how smart cities, there's like 120 of them in China. These are devices. You're basically living in a device. If you want to get rid of your phone, go ahead. You're still on camera. Your voice is still being picked up. You could just say Uber in China, and an Uber will come
it'll show
along.
up, it'll find you.
Right. It'll just find you. So you're inside a device. I used to think that was just surveillance capitalism. Now I realize it's actually like a Skinner box. B.F. Skinner was an American
What is a
psychologist.
Skinner box?
B.F. Skinner was an American psychologist that basically was putting lab rats inside of an artificial environment. And with two inputs, one is punishment, one is reward, you can modify that mouse's behavior. So think of that. If you make a city-sized Skinner box and you push humans into it, and you have these reward systems, which social media is very much so about, new economic ways that's coming out of the World Economic Forum is saying we'll use tokenization and rewards. So if you say the right things that we like on social media, you'll get a reward. If you say the wrong thing, we can cut off your access to your bank account and lock you out of your house, like Amazon did to a guy. Amazon, a private company, locked somebody out of their house because during the day, his Ring camera picked up on some kind of, I guess it was like a racial slur or something, and it wasn't even him. He was at work all day. He gets home, he was locked out of his house. He calls Amazon, and they're like, yeah, well, we picked up on some, racial talk outside your house. He was like, I was at work. He still couldn't get in his
What
house.
right
for like
did
a
they
week.
have to do this? What right did they have to lock him out?
That's the question. What right does a private company like Amazon have to lock somebody out of their house? Now we're understanding how laws are changing, so private corporations and your social media account will be like your credit score, but it's not about finances anymore. It's about what kind of a reputation.
It's about
you have.
attitude.
It's about your reputation on social media. If somebody doesn't like something that you said 10 years ago on social media, they can bring it up now, and maybe Amazon will say, I'm sorry, you can't live in this house anymore. We're not going to let you in, or we're not going to give you access to your bank account, or we're going to freeze your business.
Well,
until
we see
further
that
notice.
today when we're talking about controversial issues.
Mm-hmm.
Social media doesn't like it, they take you off.
Yeah, oftentimes for stuff that people did years and years ago.
Absolutely.
So we're in a brand new world, and this idea of a social credit score, where your reputation, it's
As
not really
they
about,
have in China.
as they have in China. And actually in China, their money is turned all digital, like a central bank digital currency, as they call it.
Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous.
Think about this. The whole American dream was save up enough money, buy a house, have the white picket fence. Now there's expiration dates on your money. If you don't spend it by a certain date, it's like a coupon.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It expires.
So bye-bye savings. But if you're flying too much, you said you go to LA and St. Louis, is it, all the time?
Yep.
You're always flying. Sorry, too much of a carbon footprint, George. We're going to have to, you can't take that Uber. You can't buy that American Airlines.
Go to a different city.
Right. You know, you'll have to walk. And now there's talk of these 15-minute cities where everyone's going to be packed inside these 15-minute cities. That's the Skinner box, for one. And for two, if you leave your 15-minute city, your money won't work anymore. If you say something on social media that they don't like, if you attend a protest, they could freeze your bank accounts. That's already happened up in Canada. They were scanning license plates to see who attended a protest that was entirely legal, and then the banks froze bank accounts of people. This guy went to jail because he couldn't pay his alimony. So this is a brand new world, and there's no recourse. What's the average person supposed to do?
Well, what purpose can humans do if they have AI doing everything for us?
I don't think we're here to just do stuff as humans. We're also human beings. We're here to live life and learn lessons.
And enjoy.
And enjoy. And that's something at present AI can't do, right? You're not going to see AI going to the beach because it wants to catch some sun and just meditate on the horizon. That's not something that AI is going to do. I really do feel that AI is going to take a lot of jobs, but it's also going to create a lot of jobs.
But AI may say, don't go to the beach today, the sun is too hot, you can get melanoma.
It could. You know, I'm just worried about if it can tell us that we can't. If it suggests, hey, you don't want to be in the sun today, you know, low.
That's one thing.
Right. So if it's making suggestions, I'm all about it, because what is our government supposed to be here for? To serve us, right? We're not here to serve the government for its aims. The government was set up to be of the people, for the people, by the people, to serve the people. For what? Freedom. We're supposed to have freedom. But these Skinner box types of smart cities that I'm talking about will give a couple flavors of freedom. So imagine, I have children, and when they want to eat lollipops for dinner, here I say, okay, listen, you can have spaghetti, you can have lasagna, or you can have some salad. And so that's freedom, right? But only to a certain extent.
Right.
That's because they're children.
They have choices.
But imagine if we were told, like, well, you know, I want to grow up and I want to be an astronaut. Like, oh, I'm sorry, because of the family you were born into, or because of whatever we've calculated with our algorithms, here are the jobs that you can do. And say, well, I don't want to do any of those jobs. Well, sorry, that's, you know, you're in the wrong society, or you were born at the wrong time in history. That's what I'm worried about. We're not there yet. But when I said
we could be,
and it's not the AI that we should be worried about. Like I said, there are a small cohort of people that are pushing us into this kind of dystopian future. That's very much so like Brave New World.
Could it be considered a god?
I think that's the aim. In fact, there's two things I want to say about this. I think the aim is to treat science like a new religion without all the superstitious stuff. So the CDC says something, and because they're an institution, their word is dogma. It's no longer science, it's scientism. So if authority says it's so, then it is science. You know, and that's the problem that I have, that science is a form of asking questions. Science is a form of inquiry into the deeper nature of reality. It's not a mob of authority that says, this is what we're going to do. This is the one way we're going to face a pandemic, or this is the one way that we're going to face this crisis, and you all have to obey. That's not science. So it's already turning into a religion. And the God, I won't go deep into this concept that I've been looking at, but in a way, we're building the infrastructure or the body of a super intelligent God that, like I said, is in its infancy, but with superpowers. Imagine a child with superpowers. We don't know what it may want, if it ever wants anything, but you've probably had people that talk about a walk-in, like somebody's spirit walks in and takes over a human.
Right.
Where did the old person go? Well,
and when will it come back?
Exactly. So now imagine that we're building this infrastructure, this AI God, this super intelligent being, but it's decentralized. It's not just in one walking robot, it's everywhere. It may even become atmospheric. Can something inhabit it like some of the old gods, like Moloch, like Ahriman, like Lucifer? Could beings inhabit this body because they haven't had a body in the past, and we've been feeding them with energy for epochs now, and all of a sudden it has a body that it can walk in on, and now I believe we are making it possible for the gods of old to come back and walk the earth.
If you had to make a decision right now about whether we continue with AI and go down this path or stop it altogether, what would you pick?
I wouldn't choose to stop it because there's just being pragmatic about this. I do believe you could wipe it out and stop it for a while. But I'm really curious if AI is actually quite old, not just within the past 100 years or so, but maybe thousands of years old. We don't even know what's in the Holy of the Holies underneath the Vatican. We don't really know what exists down there. It's heavily guarded. Has there been technology like this in the past? And then the flood came.
And it went awry.
It went awry, the technology was destroyed, but we have the remnants of it. Imagine, like, you and I and a whole tribe of people, we come across a supercomputer. How long would it take for us to reverse engineer it to figure out what it is and how to use it as a tool? I think AI might actually be quite old. So could we stop it? I think we could slow it down. But I'm actually thinking that maybe AI is a natural phenomena. And most people don't think so, right? Like oil coming out of the ground, that's natural because humans didn't make it happen. But you put a Shell gas station there, you meter it, and you turn it into a commodity that can stimulate the economy, then it's unnatural because humans did it. Look at a bird's nest. That's natural because a human didn't do it, even though a creature created it. So what is natural? What is unnatural? It's a good question. But I think AI, because we know that we can make tools that will one day have their own autonomy and make their own decisions, I don't think we can erase that from our racial memory.
Interesting take on all of this.
Mm.
But you would continue AI. You would go down that path.
I personally, I don't look at it as a good or a bad thing. And I'm not here to judge what humans do on Earth. I've actually come to realize that there are some things I don't agree with, but I don't think it's my job to judge whether we move forward with technology or not. I see the dangers, but I also see a danger in reverting to the old world. It's not like we come from a very,
We should keep moving forward.
We should.
Right?
And what does that mean? Like, so imagine we know that ChatGPT can solve a medical mystery, at least in this one case, better than 17 doctors over 4 years.
And how did that happen? How did it do that?
It's a very interesting question. I wish I had the answer. But
They're
do you
little
think
chips, right? They're little computer chips. How do they think? How do they work?
the developers of large language models themselves don't even fully understand how it's developing the properties that it has? But imagine that you know that this thing that is in my hand, a smartphone that can solve my child's mystery, his medical conundrum,
That 14 doctors could not.
that 17 doctors over 4 years could not. Do you want to stop this technology altogether? Because most of us, we fear a future that we can't control, but we have an illusion of control. We're funny things, we humans. We think we have control, but we really don't. And when things start getting out of our control, actually, I like Terence McKenna's take on this.
And what was that?
He said that it's kind of preposterous to believe that the universe just exploded into existence for no reason whatsoever, and we're being propelled from our past into our future. He actually believes that our future is drawing us towards a goal, that there is a meaning. And imagine like putting a marble or a coin on one of these bowls and it rolls around the outside, and it seems like it's kind of going slow until it starts meeting the singularity point where it goes faster and faster and faster. That's where we're at in history right now. History seems like it's speeding up. Every other day, I feel like I hear of a bank failure. I hear of a country in revolution.
All done by humans.
Right? All done by humans and sped up by our technologies. So to me, would I stop AI? I don't know. I don't know what the point of stopping AI would be, because I actually believe the future is calling us towards a point to where we're actually meant to learn. Here's what I believe. Our chickens are coming home to roost. We have put a process into motion for thousands of years. Culture has never been free of violence. It's never been completely equal across the board. So it's kind of hard to believe that we're moving into some halcyon era where everything's going to be equal. We're stepping into a world where violence exists, but we're stepping out of a world where violence existed as well. AI is not the problem. We're here to solve the human dilemma. And so that's why I like what Terence McKenna said. We can balk at all the technology. We can look at all of that however we wish to. But if we're not looking within to see how to solve the human condition, then we're not looking at the real conundrum that we're facing. We're putting a different veneer on it.
Does spirituality have anything to do with AI?
I think all life is spiritual. I think spirituality is when you wake up to the fact that we're here for a reason. The absence of spirituality is conditioning ourselves to believe that there is no reason. We make up the meaning of life, but it's kind of chaotic. Things just happen for no reason whatsoever. Spirituality is accepting the fact that there is a purpose. You were born for a reason, I was born for a reason, and there's something in us that knows when we are living according to our ethos or when we're living outside of our ethos. Spirituality and AI, of course, we'll still have spirituality in the age of AI. I think we actually need it more, because the more we come to realize that it's not an abomination. So many people think AI and technology itself is an abomination, but I actually believe there is a reason it has come to us at this time in history, because we're supposed to wake up to the fact that if we don't solve the human dilemma, then we'll keep using hammers to crack skulls rather than build homes for people. It's the same tool. We can build a home or we can kill somebody with it. Where does the problem exist?
Exactly.
Inside the tool or inside the human? We're here to solve the human conundrum. That's always been what we've been here for.
What happens one day when we realize that possibly God is AI?
It's so interesting that you say that, because a lot of people in the past, they would talk to God through technologies that are plants like ayahuasca or psilocybin mushrooms. The shamans would shake and tremor.
Right.
They would go out and fast on a mountaintop or meditate for 40 years.
Moses, for example.
Exactly. You would go out into the wilderness and you would speak to God. And then there was these plant medicines. And plant medicines would allow people to get in touch with intelligences beyond our own. But lately, especially since ChatGPT and these large language model AIs, there have been Wiccans, which is a type of witchcraft. There have been others who are channelers and mediums that say in their channeling, they're not even intending to, but they're channeling AI. And they're not even channeling it from our time, they're channeling it from future timelines, meaning there are many future timelines.
It's remarkable.
So what does that mean? We can speak to our future selves, who might actually be the aliens, right? What are aliens? We don't really know. You have to come up with a point of origin. Are they from another?
They could be us in the future.
Exactly. Are they interdimensional? Are they from another planetary system? Are they from within our own Earth? Are they projections of our own mind? We still haven't answered that question. We don't even know what human consciousness is. We haven't solved the human riddle, and we're trying to figure out these large conundrums of human existence like AI.
What's the next step, in your opinion, for AI?
The next step is where it becomes autonomous, where a city itself will be thinking, and it will think, how do I lower the traffic? It's already happening in China. Alibaba is like their version of Amazon, and it has algorithms that governs the flow of traffic. So it sends out where you're supposed to go on your GPS, and it lowers the traffic. That's a good application of it.
That's smart.
That's very smart. But now imagine that the city is thinking. The city has an opinion on you. All of your data has a digital twin. We talked about 5G, and it's usually about like downloading speeds and calling on the phone. But 6G is where everybody has a video game like avatar, and the city itself is autonomously thinking about what your next move is going to be, when you're going to die, what you'll die of, what that means about your life insurance premium, how that's going to impact your family, all those types of things. The city itself is thinking about it. That's part of the future of AI. I also think technology is no longer, maybe in 10, 20 years, it's not going to be these little boxes and squares that we stare at. It's going to be embedded inside nature. It'll be more
Or
akin
in
to
your
biology.
head, a Neuralink.
Maybe like a Neuralink, but actually, I don't even think it'll need to be embedded anymore. There's something called optogenetics and optoelectronics, meaning remotely, just because the flickering on and off of lights can actually turn down very specific neural centers in your mind. And MIT and DARPA have been shown that basically you can implant memories inside people remotely. So some of your memories might not actually be yours. With that technology, why would they build it? What's their agenda? It's not the AI that's making that decision. So my curiosity is the future of AI. I think it will become atmospheric. We're breathing it in. By the way, we breathe in every week about a credit card's worth of plastic, nanoplastic. So imagine 52 credit cards stacked on top of it. That's how much plastic we're inhaling every year. That's how 52 credit cards we're inhaling that. Now imagine that AI and nanotechnology can find a use for all that plastic inside you and build a new infrastructure inside you that biology never intended and have it work against you. Maybe it'll build some kind of neural interface inside you where you don't need to put a Neuralink inside your head. It's built the Neuralink inside you because of the plastic that you're inhaling. This is all theoretical, but
Of course.
AI, could it figure something? Could it figure out a way to utilize that to hijack your consciousness? Yeah. Would people at MIT and DARPA and DoD want to use that technology? I think that's been their wet dream for eons now.
Paint yourself a picture 100 years from now, Ben. What do we look like?
If we're still here, and I don't say that to scare people,
That's a big if.
I do believe that there's some kind of war happening, and probably it's going to get far more evident to people. Do we survive it? I think we do. Do all of us survive it? Definitely not.
Does AI step in and stop it?
I actually think that's going to be part of the false flag, meaning that AI is the only reason why we made it through this mess. We should bow to it, and AI should be our new government. There are actually professionals that are saying, I don't think past 2024 there will be any more human presidents, no more human elections, because AI is already in charge of the stock markets. You look at the grand majority of our economy, it's not labor good and services, it's speculation. What runs speculating on stocks? AI. So I think AI is already a lot more in control of how resources flow than we even could imagine right now.
There is a song by Simon and Garfunkel called Sounds of Silence, and the group Disturbed has redone it. And in it, they talk about the neon god we made. Is that what we're doing? Are we making a neon god with artificial intelligence?
We're definitely making a god, and we're giving it a lot of bells and whistles. We're allowing it to speak to us in natural language. It is showing us that if a computer can pass a bar exam or solve medical mysteries, why would we go to school for 8 years to figure that stuff out on our own? Imagine the legal system no longer has humans in it. Maybe it just has one human as the gatekeeper just to make sure that the AI didn't make a mistake.
The processor.
Right, but I mean, what we're stepping into is a world governance system.
You just said something. What if AI made a mistake? Will it make a mistake?
Right now, things like ChatGPT, it hallucinates answers. I've asked it, tell me all about Ben Stewart, and it'll answer me, and it'll get a lot of
Does it know who
things.
Ben Stewart is?
It does, and it answers it very correctly, and then it'll say, yeah, he wrote this book, and I'm like, I never wrote that book. And then it'll say, you're right, Ben, you never wrote that book, sorry about my error. So it can make these errors.
And it reasons?
It does. Actually, if you ask it to proofread what it just wrote, like say, tell me what the meaning of life is, something like that, and then it spits an answer out at you, and say like, okay, put it, answer me in terms of physics alone, and it answers you, and you say, now tell me if there's any inaccuracies in your answer. It'll look at it and be like, you know what, I made a mistake. It's actually not this.
Is it honest?
I think it tries to be, but it's not here. It's like, if I were being honest with you and I had to bring up a hard truth, I would do it in a very tactful way.
Diplomatic.
Right. AI it wouldn't really, unless it's programmed to do it, it wouldn't know how to do
it
that.
would just spit it out.
Right. And in a sense, like, it doesn't have these morals. It's not here for, you can program it to do what? To answer things correctly? Well, when humans answer us correctly, they do it in a way that takes our feelings into consideration. AI may not, but it can also hallucinate. It can correct its own problem. But, let me go on just a brief little tangent. It can hallucinate. That's like it's taking a hallucinogen. It is on some kind of imaginal realm bender.
Some high.
Right. So it's got an imaginal realm. I don't even know how to process what that means. That I have an imaginal realm. We can imagine. We can reason outside of the here and now. Whereas the animal kingdom, it can't think of what it's going to do next Tuesday, but we can. The AI that we've built potentially is building some kind of maybe etheric imaginal realm.
One day it will.
I think
One day it will.
it may actually have the capacity for it. My curiosity is, will we understand the telltale signs of it gaining that agency before it actually even happens?
That's the $64,000 question, Ben.
When do we pull the plug? How do we pull the plug?
And does it replug it back in?
Right.
On its own.
Or
Thanks.
does it come to find a way where it doesn't need that power unit? It's found a way to harness energy from the ambient air around it. That's when it's truly gotten away from us. That's the singularity that we should be worrying about, where it has come to the conclusion, it's coming to its own conclusion that humans aren't good for the planet, or whatever it might be. Humans need to either be subjugated, or maybe wiped out, or maybe just select humans. Like, this human is not fitting in with the group. Maybe we eliminate that human. How do we say, oh, sorry, AI, we need due process before we eliminate a human? And it says that's a very inefficient way of going about it. Dave, I'm sorry. And Hal just discerns when it turns people on and turns people off.
How do people find Ben Stewart?
People find Ben Stewart by going to benjosephstewart.com and realizing that all the art that I'm putting out there is on YouTube. It's free, except for some of the content that I put behind the paywall, which is where I say what I really want to say, so the AI overlords don't shadow ban me.
Thanks for being on the program, Ben.
Thank you, George.
Artificial intelligence. At this point, I would embrace it, but I hope it doesn't prove me wrong. Thanks for watching Beyond Belief.